Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, friends and industry colleagues. My pleasure to be here today to talk to you about ActionFlight, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of our parent company, Swift Arrow Investment Holdings. I've got a presentation which is a little different for you today. It's more pretty pictures, no graphs, no numbers. And I'd like to talk you through the journey of setting up a first in the UAE Air Operator Certification and some first to Rassel Climber activities never seen here before. All adding to the Rassel Climber RAK TDA Tourism Development Authority's objective of being the adventure capital of the UAE. But in fact, in doing that, they'll become the adventure capital of the Middle East, without doubt. So to start off with, I'll play you a little video here which shows you exactly what we do in Rassel Climber already. The first of the two activities, or first of the three first activities are hot air balloons in Rassel Climber and aerobatic flight experiences. So the hot air balloons are the first time there's ever been a commercial operator here in the Rassel Climber region. We operate a couple of big 450,000 cubic foot hot air balloons with a 20-person basket. And the difference between Rassel Climber in terms of topography and operational requirements is that we're sitting here in between a mountain range, the Hajar Mountains, and the sea, with a beautiful desert area out over the terracotta dunes in between. But that presents us with a lot more challenges than the average central desert area of our neighbours. And so when we set this operation up, we had to scout the area, we had to get out there, get stuck in four-wheel drive vehicles. We had to put contingencies in place, and we had to make sure that our motto of safety first was 100% robust. And we've achieved that, and now we're operating daily with our hot air balloons through the skies of Rassel Climber. It's an amazing setting. Moving on to the aerobatic flight, well, this is a first for the UAE. We operate two aircraft at the moment, which are the later model of what the Red Bull Air Race series actually started off with. They're a German-built extra 330 aircraft with a very high power-to-weight ratio. They're actually designed for competition aerobatics. They're an unlimited category, and they have a load factor limitation of plus and minus 10 G with one person on board, or plus and minus 8 G. Now that sounds scary to someone who might like to be a passenger on board. Don't worry, we're not going to take you out there and do plus minus 10 G. Ordinarily on a customer flight we may do plus 6G, maybe plus 4, plus 5, and minus 1 to 2. But as you can see from the video, it's a lot of fun. And the idea of it is we give you a positive experience, something that you've never ever done before, and bring you home smiling. So a little bit about the history. So the backstory of ActionFlight is I had a company in New Zealand which ran for 15 years until I decided I wanted to be a big plane pilot, and I went off to the airlines. But the company started out with a couple of American-built high-performance aerobatic airplanes called Pit Specials. And we had a long-standing relationship with an energy drink that you may all be familiar with, Red Bull. So when Red Bull turned up in New Zealand to market their products, I was aware that the marketing manager for the country was in my hometown, which is Queenstown, New Zealand, incidentally the adventure capital of the world, and they were looking for something exciting to brand and promote the energy drink with. So I got hold of the guy's number, picked him up from his hotel, took him to the airport, took him for a flight out over our lake, 5,000 feet, ran him through an aerobatic routine and impressed the pants off him basically. We landed and he said, "Where do I sign?" And so we had an 11-year relationship with Red Bull as a brand partner. And that ran right through to about the time where the Red Bull Air Race series started. So that was the humble beginnings of the operation that we now have in the UAE. So adding to the two initial activities, we are in the process of completing the setup for RAK Skydive. That is also a first for Rassel Climber, and in a stunning setting, different to anywhere else in the UAE. We will operating onto a parachute landing area at the Tower Links Golf Club, beautiful green golf course, with an amazing, stunning backdrop with the Hajar Mountains and Jebel Jais right behind us, and floating down over the mangroved area on the beautiful blue coastline of the northern part of the city. That's scheduled to start operating sometime around Q4 this year. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the journey. So setting up a majority foreign-owned AOC in the UAE has been a very interesting challenge. I'd like to thank the GCAA. Without the willingness for them to accept the experience and background of all of my post holders, including myself, we would not have a chance to set this kind of operation up. So for them to accept us and recognise our experience and work with us on this project has been amazing, and they've been incredibly supportive and helpful along the way. So a bit about that process. It's a long process. It's no different to the setup of an airline, basically. All the same processes are a part of the journey. So before we even start with the GCAA process, we have to put the team in place. So basically that entailed recruiting the post holders. So much like an airline, we have to have positions in management covering all the different areas of the business. So starting out with the accountable manager, which is me, by the way. Accountable manager, flight operations manager, training manager, ground operations manager, continuing airworthiness manager, and security manager in some circumstances. All of those positions need to be people deemed fit and proper for the role, and they are scrutinised by the GCAA, who do a very good job, and that is what keeps everyone safe. So that's the first step, recruit the post holders. Then it's a matter of going out and seeking the permissions and getting the approvals. And I'd like to thank at this stage also that the RAK DCA, Department of Civil Aviation in Ras Al Khaimah, His Highness Sheikh Salim, has been an immense support to us. A fantastic guy and very knowledgeable, and we've enjoyed his wisdom along the way as well. So with the connection with the RAK DCA was the natural progression to the rest of the approvals, which ran from municipality, local police, federal police, CID for the security checks on all of the post holders and the management team, air traffic control, and Ras Al Khaimah International Airport. So each and every one of those departments had to sign off on us. Simultaneously, we had to apply for a trade license. So in order to be able to do this commercially, a trade license is required for the exact type of activity that we do. The process for the trade license was interesting in itself. We had to build a business model, and we had to put projections in place to show how we thought this business was going to run and what kind of numbers we may achieve. Now, it's very difficult as a startup to actually put that together unless you've got some kind of benchmarks. Well, fortunately, we did have some benchmarks, but not from the UAE necessarily, although there are some similar activities in the neighbouring Emirates. However, benchmarks don't really reflect on a very fast-growing emirate with an amazing tourism sector already and a resort market that is just growing out of control right now in an amazing direction. So our projections are aspirational, but they're also based on what we thought we could achieve right now in a growing market, and also with the neighbouring market. So the catchment for our tourism activities is not just Ras Al Khaimah, it's all of the Emirates. So those projections went to RAK TDA, and they took their time to look over them and decide whether or not they were sensible, and decide whether or not they wanted these kind of activities in their emirate. And thankfully, we fell right into the right category with adventure tourism, in our case in aviation. So after an approval from RAK TDA came no objection certificate, and then issue of trade license. So once all of those steps have been taken, we were then allowed to continue to the GCAA and start our process for the air operator certification. One more step along the way, however, and that is in order to have an air operator certificate, you've actually got to have a base. So not only do you need pilots and staff, crew, for all of the things you want to do, but you've got to have a base. So that entailed having a lease agreement and a base of operations for all of the operations, including hot air balloons and fixed wing. So our base of operations is in two places. We've got a head office at Tower Links Golf Club, and we have a hangar for our fixed wing aircraft at the RAK International Airport. So with all of that in place, then there is an introductory meeting at the GCAA for them to understand what the scope of our business is, and then for them to basically decide whether or not our concept was sound and whether it's sound and whether it's even doable. So fortunately, we're not reinventing the wheel with the operations that we have, because we've done it before. Not only ourselves, but others in the region that have. So although some of what we do is brand new, not all of it. So they have other benchmarks to judge us by. I've got a presentation here which is a bit different to the others. There's no numbers, no graphs. It's just a pictorial basically to show a bit of the history, a bit of the backstory, a bit of the current story, and I'll tell you a little bit, but only a very little bit, about the future. And I'll just click through here. So that shows you what we've got going on right now. So on the left is one of our hot air balloon baskets, 20 people on board. In the middle is the extra 330 aerobatic airplane we have two of. There's a little image there of a DJ in the sky flight that we've done a few times there, and then there's skydive on the other side. One thing I haven't talked about is part of the utilisation of these aerobatic aeroplanes is going to be a serious side of the business, and that is training. So before I go into that, a little bit of background about myself and my immediate partner in the operational part of the business. So we've been involved in aviation for, collectively, I worked out about 70 years. 35 odd for me, and similar for Pete. So Pete Lindsay is a former 777 training examiner, standards trainer. We both worked in Emirates as pilots for many years, Pete twice as long as I did. So we have a background in a long-standing airline career, flying wide-body jets internationally. Prior to that, with my operation in New Zealand, I was flying the Red Bull aerobatic airplanes as well as flying for the national carrier in New Zealand, and then I moved on to actually Royal Brunei after that, flying different kinds of Boeing wide-bodied aircraft. So this vertical logo you see on the screen now, that is our brand for a thing called upset prevention and recovery training. I'm not sure how many of you would be familiar with what that is, but basically that is a new mandated kind of training that is mandated by ICAO and IATA, the two international regulatory bodies. So this UPRT, upset prevention and recovery training, sounds a bit scary, doesn't it? It's not about people being upset, it's about airplanes being upset. So basically to define an airplane upset in layman's terms, it's basically when the aircraft is doing something it's not supposed to be. And that could be via an environmental issue, or it could be via an issue caused by another aircraft flying nearby. Or it could be caused by air traffic control, weather, or various scenarios. But basically the largest killer of people in the aviation industry right now is a thing called LOC-I, loss of control in flight. And this is all a bit of a serious subject, but this is something that has been now mandated. So pilots coming through the system to become commercial pilots now have to undergo a certain training. It's called UPRT, Upset Prevention and Recovery Training, and it's on an actual aircraft, not in a simulator. And the reason for that is because the simulator simply can't simulate all the realism of the dangers of loss of control in flight. So the vertical brand and our training business will be basically providing service to the airlines, the private jet organisations, and all the training organisations, academies, etc., for providing specifically this kind of training. And what it physically is it's 3 hours spread over 4 sessions of actual flying with an instructor who's trained for the job and has an appropriate experience, to put them through a series of manoeuvres and exercises which will set them up basically for a better day at the office if something goes wrong. Basically, it's giving pilots a bag of tools in order to handle emergency situations or out of the ordinary situations. So preceding the 3 hours of flight training is a 5-hour technical knowledge refresher. So it's like a performance and aerodynamic refresher, and then the pilots undergo the 3 hours of training over 4 flights. After that, we sign them out, send them back to work, much safer pilots, and then when anything goes wrong, we hope that there will not be a hull insurance claim made by the company when something goes wrong, that they'll actually recover the situation and fly everyone home and land safely. All sounds a bit scary, doesn't it? Doesn't have to be if the pilots have done a UPRT course. And it's not designed to give them instant experience either, it's actually designed to give them a bag of tools and some serious procedures to fall back on should anything go wrong. I'm just going to click through a little bit more. There's my hometown, Queenstown. So that's the adventure capital of the world. It's in the Southern Lakes region. There's a bit of crossover. I just want to tell you quickly about the crossover between Ras Al Khaimah and Queenstown, New Zealand. And that is simply that adventure capital of the world versus adventure capital of the Middle East. So it fits well that we're doing what we're doing here, and it's what we did back in our home country. There's a little picture of me, believe it or not. I'm not going to tell you which one I am, but that's one of my first full-time jobs, was flying this former crop duster, doing something similar to what we do here, but different. One of the other former jobs, flying Pilatus Porter, the Swiss-built turboprop ski planes onto the glaciers in New Zealand. Flying for the national carrier on turboprops. One of the best jobs in the world, Emirates Airlines. That was a fantastic time. And the time with Red Bull in New Zealand, which was the precursor to the aerobatic operation here. Fast forward to here, and there's our extra 330 out over Marjan Island. You can see the Wynn Marjan casino down below on the northern point of Al Marjan Island. We're out there regularly now flying our customers and telling them all about the amazing developments on Marjan Island. There's Pete, who I mentioned earlier, with one of our customers last week. And so Pete is the former fast jet pilot for the Royal New Zealand Air Force. He's had an extensive career in training and airline flying, examining standards, etc. So we're very privileged to have him on the team, as we are a lot of our other talent on board. There's Pete. Not sure who's holding the controls there. Not him, obviously. And he's the pilot. Don't think I have to talk to him about that. And there's our hot air balloon and Captain Jean-Pascal Lemaire, who's our chief pilot, hot air balloons. And that is in our first balloon, Alpha 6 November Zulu Lima, affectionately named after New Zealand. The other one is actually Zulu Quebec November, which is Queenstown, the original hometown. Here's our team, the balloon ground crew from all over the world. And you can see a couple of our pilots in the basket there as well. And there's just a snapshot of what you're seeing on the video screen as well. So that wraps up ActionFlight and Vertical UAE. I'd just like to once again thank you all for your attention. We're trying to get the name out there as a startup business. One thing I didn't mention about the process with the GCAA is that once all those processes are done, then there's a writing of many manuals. I've forgotten how many we have, but there are a lot of paperwork involved. Then there's approving flight, showing the GCAA robust standard operating procedures. And with an activity like the aerobatics, for example, especially commercially, in terms of risk, We have a serious safety department, compliance management as well. I've got a team of experts to be proud of, absolutely. And then finally, after the proving flights, they will issue us with an air operating certificate and then operations specifications, and that's the end of the process. Off you go. It doesn't stop there, by the way. We're regularly checked on and we have to comply with every detail of our operations specs. So that's a little insight into what it takes to set up an AOC as a foreigner in the UAE. We're very grateful for the support of the government, of not only Ras Al Khaimah, His Highness Sheikh Saud, Sheikh Salim, and the rest of the members of the local government to allow us to operate these activities here. And basically the willingness of the UAE to allow, with their very open-minded attitudes, these kinds of things to come about and for these businesses to start operating. We're very, very thankful, privileged and grateful to be here. Thanks very much. Enjoy your lunch.